minutes, so I think it'll go on. It's kind of hard to start here in the middle like this, huh? Guilt.
Guilt asks for punishment, and its request is granted. Not in truth, but in the world of shadows and illusions built on sin. The Son of God perceived what he would see because perception is a wish fulfilled. Perception changes, made to take the place of changeless knowledge. Yet is truth unchanged. It cannot be perceived, but only known. What is perceived takes many forms, but none has meaning. Brought to truth, its senselessness is quite apparent. Kept apart from truth, it seems to have a meaning and be real.
Yeah, that idea of sin is just such a loaded one, because we bring forward our old ideas.
Yes, I
and
know.
and it makes me think of, my first impression when I read this, without remembering what the Course says sin is that idea where people say, well, why did you bring this sickness on yourself? There's guilt there. It's like pointing the finger again, like, what kind of faults do you have or sin do you have that you're going to be making yourself sick? And I know that's not what he's saying here.
Yeah, the first line of this paragraph is important. Guilt asks for punishment. Anytime we believe guilt is true in any form, it automatically is going to bring forward some kind of punishment. They go together, because that's just the way our mind thinks. And the request is granted in that our perception is that this punishment has happened. And now that seems to be proof that the guilt was real. So that's why we're caught in this really weird dream where the guilt was never real, but because we believed it real, we enacted a punishment that now seems to prove the reality of something that wasn't real in the first place. That's why all undoing, when they talk about accepting the atonement for yourself, what we are undoing are our beliefs in guilt. Always ideas of guilt will then heal the manifestation of punishment for the guilt. But if you try to heal, like for instance, the sickness, without uncovering the idea of guilt that caused it, you don't have the power to do that, because if you still believe you're guilty that way, you're going to believe you deserve, you might heal that form of punishment, but then there'll be some other form. So that's why guilt is what we're all undoing here, the whole idea. And what are we always feeling guilty about? We said this yesterday. There's only one source of fear, which means there's only one source of guilt, that we usurped the power of God and actually changed our identity. So we always are seeing manifestations of that belief, but it, like the Course says, never happened. That's why guilt is not justified in any form. It's not true. Okay, and perception will perceive what you wish to perceive. If you wish to believe the separation is true, you will perceive evidence on that behalf, all kinds of it. All kinds of evidence of guilt. That's what our mind does. So that's why the choice for a miracle is saying, I don't want to perceive what isn't true. And that's why it says, what is perceived takes many forms, but none has meaning if it's about guilt, because you've been told it's not true. So even if it looks really meaningful in the dream, it can't be true. Brought to truth, these perceptions, right? Its senselessness is quite apparent. Kept apart from truth, it seems to have meaning and be real. That's really the whole story, isn't it?
But we wouldn't bring it to truth unless we questioned its validity.
Yes. Right. That's why we have to have a little theory here before we can start
Yeah.
applying
Yeah.
the lessons, which are practical practice in bringing perceptions to truth. But if you are still believing in guilt and you don't understand the theory behind why it's appropriate to undo it, the practice isn't as effective. That's why I think in the beginning of the lessons he says, without the theoretical foundation, the exercises are meaningless. You have to have some kind of sense of, why am I doing this? Why am I searching my mind? Why am I bringing it to the Holy Spirit to let it go? What am I even looking for?
That's where pain comes in. If we didn't, I don't really want to look at something good about pain, but I can see, because I was thinking I'm just addicted to pain, but now I'm seeing it in a more positive sense that, okay, the pain is there, and that I can look at it.
Yeah, the pain is a signal that you believe some idea of guilt that is not true. So it's like you can use the very thing that we want to get rid of, the fear, the pain, the guilt, all that stuff. The anger, now you can interpret it as that's a signal to me that I've got a false idea of guilt, because this stuff wouldn't be coming to me if I didn't believe. And so I can search for it and ask for a miracle. Rather than judge ourselves, like you were saying, judge ourselves or be afraid of it.
It seems like that's where the real work, okay, in my mind, I'm contrasting that with today, we're only gonna ask for joyous thoughts. It seems like the undoing is really as important as asking just for joyous thoughts.
Yes. Yeah, he says that love is our inheritance and it's our right in the beginning of the course, but we have to remove the blocks to it before we are aware of it. And removing the blocks is the atonement plan, the undoing of what isn't there so you can see what is. But we have to be trained in the whole idea we have the right to ask for joyous thoughts. We are so confused, we're thinking, wasn't it just yesterday we said that? Somehow that wasn't kosher or something. Oh yeah, you were saying you feel guilty to think that you're going to be happy because you should be doing some penance for all the bad things you've done.
Yeah.
You can't, right? Remember, we all have that sense of, it's not right to be happy, especially when you know how bad you are.
Well, because it's so
It was
ingrained.
a religious thing.